I'm Victoria, and this is what Victoria read. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, as you can see from the title of the video, I'm going to go through my 2022 reread TBR. So previously, in previous years, I've always made sure I had at least one book to reread on every single month's TBR. That went out the window this year in 2021, and actually at the time of filming, I've only reread 2 books, and I've got one more on my December TBR, which is pretty sad. If you're not aware, all of the books that are behind me are books that I've read. I keep my TBR, my read books very separate. My TBR is upstairs, read books are downstairs, and I only keep books I've given either 4 or 5 stars and that I plan to read again. So I was looking at my shelves and I realised that the shelves down here have been really neglected this year. I'm also starting to run out of space, and so these are all books, obviously, that I've read before, but that I just kind of want to check that I want to keep them in my permanent collection. Some are books... Actually, I don't think I've reread any of these books since I read them. I haven't, no. So I deliberately picked out books, I think, when I was going through it that I haven't reread since I've read them. And we will see if they are still keepers. So I'm going to go through these fairly quickly because there are 12. I pick one for each month. And then every time I generate a TBR in the various different ways I have planned for next year, I will also make sure that one of these are included. So we have got thrillers, literary fiction, historical fiction, 1 classic, 1 romance, and 1 middle grade. So let's get into it. So we're going to start out with the kind of darker books and then finish with something a bit lighter. So the first one on the stack is His Bloody Project by Graham McCrae Burnett. I read this a couple of years ago. It was the Man Booker Prize shortlist for 2016, and I'm pretty sure that year my brother gifted this to me for Christmas, and I can't really remember it. I think I remember reading it at the time and being a little bit confused by it, but it's quite literary fiction, and I think my reading taste has changed so much since then. I feel like I might get more out of it now. And as you can see, it's got this really gruesome cover. And it says on the front, the year is 1869. A brutal triple murder in a remote community in the Scottish Highlands leads to the arrest of a young man by the name of Roderick McRae. A memoir written about by the accused makes it clear that he is guilty, but falls to the country's finest legal and psychiatric minds to uncover what drove him to commit such a merciless act of violence. And I'm going to stop there. So yeah, I saw this on my shelves and I was like, I've not read this, and I need to, like, in such a long time, I need to check it's still a keeper. So that's the first book. The second book is a thriller that I absolutely loved, thought was amazing at the time. But it's such a Marmite book here on Booktube. Some people really like it, others think it's trash, and I want to reread it and check and see what I think. That book is The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. This was their debut. I've since read one of their other ones, You Are Not Alone, I think, and it was okay. But when I first read this, I did not spot the twist, which doesn't happen to me all that often, and I was blown away by it. So we'll see if I still love it now. So it says, when you read this book, you will make many assumptions. It's about a jealous wife obsessed with her replacement. It's about a younger woman set to marry the man she loves. The first wife seems like a disaster. Her replacement is the perfect woman. You will assume you know the motives, the history, the anatomy of the relationships. You will be wrong. And obviously I know the twist now, so I'm really intrigued to kind of go back in and see what I think second time around. Another book where I already know the twist, but I want to see if it is a keeper, and it's quite a chunk, so it takes up quite a bit of space on my shelf, is The Good Daughter by Karen Slaughter. I think I may try and pick these 2 up on audiobook and see how I get on with them in that format. This is my favourite Karen Slaughter. I always say it's one of my favourite thrillers, but I haven't actually read it for probably 18 months, 2 years. And it says, for 28 years she's hidden the truth. Now her world is about to fall apart. And it's about a pair of sisters who, when they were kids, people came into the house, attacked them and their mother, killed their mother, and left their father grieving. Their father is a defence attorney, and he's not very popular in their town because he defends all of the criminals. And then it's 28 years later, one of them is working with their dad, and then the other one gets pulled back in because of something that happens, and it's kind of uncovering what really happened that night, what's happened to the sisters since. And I thought it was amazing first time round, so we'll see if it lives up to my 5-star self-hype. Last thriller on this list, again, is a really controversial book. Some people love this book, some people really don't like it, and it's an author that I've read almost all of their work, and all of their other work I've been really lukewarm about. So when I was looking at my shelves, I was like, why did that one work so well for me? So we'll see if it continues to. It's The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. It's based on The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, which is one of my favourite classic books. It's really short. It is super creepy. If you want to try and get into classics, it's one I'd really recommend. And it's just perfect to be reading at this time of year when it's dark outside. And it says their dream house will become her worst nightmare. And it's about a woman who takes a job as a nanny in the remote Scottish Highlands. And it's about stuff that happens to her. And yeah, I think last time I read this, I like gulped it down in 2 sittings. So I want to pick it up again and see. And as you can see, I've got the hardback cover. So it's on my hardback shelf, which is up there, and it's taking up space. And I'm happy, if I still love it, to keep it. That's fine. But I just want to check. Okay, we're now going to get into literary fiction. And there are a couple of books, actually all 3 of these, 3, are books that I'm slightly scared to reread because I loved them so much the first time, and it's that fear of like, oh, I still get that feeling again. So I'm going to be rereading Hamlet by Maggie O'Farrell, which I read in December last year, I think, and was absolutely blown away by it. This takes the historical fact that Shakespeare had a son called Hamlet who died when he was 11, and from that historical fact, and then weaves this story around it. And it is about grief, it is about the role of women, it is about witchcraft, it's about social commentary, it's about all the different ways that people grieve. I thought it was beautiful, it made me sob, and as a Shakespeare nerd, obviously it made my nerdy heart very happy. And yeah, I have been, like, some books I can reread fairly quickly, others, like these 3, I need a bit of time before I can pick them up again. So I'm trying to be brave, and at some point next year I will reread this one. Okay, the next one is also a Booktube darling, and I've only ever read it on audiobook. I've never actually read the physical copy, and that is 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was one of the first audiobooks I read when I came to Booktube, and I hadn't read audiobooks for years. I picked this one up and absolutely loved it. It has been all over Booktube in the last 2 years. I think it was also one of the first like majorly hyped books that I read, and I absolutely adored it. It was 5 stars. In case you've been living under a rock, this follows a reporter who is called to Evelyn Hugo, who is this huge film star, movie star, who is getting older, and she's decided now is the time to tell her story. And we go through the story of her 7 husbands and her life, and that is all I'm going to say. I thought this was stunning first time around. Again, gave it 5 stars, and when I was looking for books to reread, I was like, I think the time has come to go back to Evelyn. So we will see. Can I just say though, I really hate this edition, like but the hardbacks are really expensive. But yeah, it's one of these weird like tall thin American hardbacks. Not my favourite. The next is a book that I might have read this year. I think it's the one in this stack that I've read most recently. And again, I'm scared because it moved me so profoundly the first time that I'm slightly scared to pick it up again, but I'm going to be brave. And at some point next year, I will be reading The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. This is just one of those books that generally with books, if somebody else doesn't like a book I love, I'm like, that's fine. Everyone's got their own opinion. But when people are like, oh, I didn't like The Pull of the Stars, I'm like, why? Like, it's perfect. I don't understand. Like, I get a little bit evangelical, get on my soapbox about it. Obviously, everybody is entitled to their own opinions. But for me, this was a perfect book. And we are in the Spanish flu in 1918, I think. Yes, in Dublin. So in the midst of World War I, we've also got a flu pandemic, and we are following a woman who works on a maternity ward, and it's a maternity ward for women who are heavily pregnant and about to give birth and also have the flu. And it's set over a couple of nights. And it is heartbreaking, it is beautiful, it's stunningly written. Emma Donoghue has been an Insta-buy author, or Insta-read author for me since I read The Wonder by her. And so when this came out last year, I was like, yep, I need to get it. And look how beautiful, like, it's this beautiful blue cover, hardcover, and then end pages. I'm obsessed. So yeah, I think this is the one on the list that I have read most recently, and I am partly terrified and partly really excited to pick this up again at some point next year. Okay, we've now got 2 historical books. I mean, one definitely is. I'm not sure about the other. So the first one is a book that's recently had kind kind of a resurgence because the most stunning edition came out for the 10th anniversary, which I haven't yet been able to get my hands on, but that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I do also have Circe by her, which I've got up there, which of the two I always say is my favourite. But I decided to reread this one just because it's been such a long time, and again I want to see what my thoughts are now, because it is literary fiction, and when I first read it I was starting to get into lit fic, and I think now I'd get a lot more out of it. So yeah, this is just the most beautiful love story from what I remember, and we're following Patroclus and Achilles and their friendship, etc., and everything that follows. And yes, I really love it. These editions are just beautiful, although I do really want the hardback Waterstones one with the sprayed edges. Ugh, was not quick enough to get my hands on one of those. Next, we have the start of what I always say is my favourite historical fiction series, and that is Dissolution by C.J. Sampson. This is the Matthew Shardlake series. I have read the entire series. Can you see it? There it is, except for this one is missing. And we're in Tudor times. This one starts at the beheading of Anne Boleyn, and the rest of the books go all the way through Henry VIII's reign and into Queen Mary, I think. No, King Edward. I think the last one finishes just as King Edward is starting to get ill. And we're following Matthew Shardlake. He is a lawyer. This is in a time before there were police or detectives, and so he kind of gets dragged into a murder mystery. And we follow him basically, and this first one starts in a monastery that's being dissolved. Somebody is killed. It's a locked room murder because they're all cut off, so it has to be someone that's there. I obviously remember the twist, but I'm just really looking forward to going back. I feel like this is going to be a comforting reread because I love this series and these characters so much. So yeah, I'm really excited for this one. Got 3 left. So my next one is going to be another one that I'm going to read on audiobook, and that is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I reread Emma this year on audiobook and really enjoyed it. I'm not allowed to read these editions because look how beautiful they are, and I would definitely wreck them. Look at that for a French flap. So this will also be on audiobook. This is one, I've read all of Jane Austen's 6 main novels, and this is one that I remember the least. It's been quite a long time since I've read it. So I'm just going to read you a little bit here. So, Eleanor is as prudent as her sister Marianne is impetuous. Each must learn from the other after they are forced by their father's death to leave their home and enter into the contests of polite society. The charms of unsuitable men and the schemes of rival ladies mean that their paths to success are fraught with disappointment, but together they attempt to find a way to happiness. And this was her debut, I think. So this was her first novel published, and yeah, I'm just really excited again. A little bit like Dissolution, kind of excited to get back in. Look how cute and small these are. To this world and read a bit more Jane Austen next year. Okay, so we've had some quite serious books, we've had some quite dark books, and now we are getting into the lighter end of things. I mean, Sense and Sensibility is also, you know, pretty light. It was, you know, the chick lit of the day. And I could have picked any of the books from this trilogy, but I've decided to go with who I think is my favourite sister from the 3, and that is Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. I absolutely adored this series. I went into it very sceptical that it was not going to be for me. Okay, so I was sent this by Anne from Rooting Branches, and yeah, I was really sceptical. Read the first one, really enjoyed it. Read this one, loved it even more, and I also thoroughly enjoyed Eve Brown. But I think I'm most like Dani, and I think that's why I gravitate towards this one. This is a fake dating trope. We are following Dani and Zaf. It's been a while since I've read this. And they get into a situation where they need to fake date, and then obviously inevitably they start to develop feelings for each other. I absolutely love the way that Talia Hibbert writes. It's fast-paced, it's sexy, it's fun. It talks about serious topics like mental health and burnout. I love the relationships between the sisters and their bond and their family stuff, and I feel like I'm really hoping that Talia Hibbert's going to bring out some more stories with this family, because I feel like there's definitely potential for more stories. So yeah, this is the one that I have grabbed because I always say it's my favourite, so let's test that theory. And then the very last one is a middle grade, and it's a series I absolutely love, fell in love with over the last year. I think I started reading this time last year. The next book is out October 2022, so this is the 3rd in the series. Book 4 is coming, so I definitely want to reread this, hopefully towards the end of next year, but obviously we'll see how it goes, because I'm not going to be in control of when I read these books, which order I read them in. And that book is Holopox by Jessica Townsend, which is the third in the Nevermore series. This was the first book in that series I gave 5 stars to. The other 2 I gave 4, really enjoyed. But this was, like, for me, the breakthrough book, and I feel like her writing leapt forward in this one, and I'm so excited for Silverborn. Like, it hurts me that it's 11 months away at the time of filming this, but yeah, I definitely want to pick up this one at some point next year. And we are following Morrigan Crow, and I don't even really want to say much more than that. Most beautiful cover. I will also show you the inside, because it is quite something else. Look at the naked hardback. I mean, and I do have these books in hardback and paperback, except for the first one, which I cannot find in hardback for a price that wouldn't require me to remortgage my house or sell my child, which is very frustrating. But yeah, I'm really excited for Silverborn next year. It's probably my most anticipated read of the year, and so obviously I needed to read Holopox to get ready for that. So yeah, so those are the 12 books that I am going to reread in 2022. Let me know in the comments, do you reread? How often do you reread? And how do you structure it? Because for me, if I don't make a TBR like this and kind of make it part of my reading diet in a very deliberate way, it just won't happen. As we found out this year when I only reread 3 books. I reread The Handmaid's Tale, Emma, and in December, at the time I'm filming this in November, but in December I will also be rereading A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. It just doesn't happen if I don't make an effort. So if you got to this point in the video, leave me a green heart emoji for Holopox. Yeah, let me know if you reread or if you don't. Please subscribe if you like more of this chaos, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks everyone. Bye.